Hey everybody, this is Joel Toppin, and I'd like to give a quick overview of a game I picked up this past spring. And it's called Gettysburg. It's by Martin Wallace, produced by Treefrog War Games. So, this is actually a really different looking game. If you're used to any kind of war games on Gettysburg, this one's going to be really kind of different in terms of its look because it doesn't use counters. It does use wooden pieces, but the pieces are rather unusual. In fact, it may be one of the silliest looking war games you'll have ever seen. You see there's little meeples and meeple cannons, and then you have a whole host of cubes, blocks, and cylinders. So these are the wooden pieces that come with the game. You have a whole bunch, like I said, of cylinders, meeples. You have one pawn to mark the day of battle. And then you got a whole bunch of cubes and discs. And then a whole host of meeples that go on this reinforcement display. So that's all the wood that comes with the game. There's a ton that comes in there. Of course, wooden dice. 4 of those wooden dice. You got what these little stick things are here. Those are to mark entrenchments. These are to mark when your artillery has fire. This is to mark when your units are disrupted. These are special order tokens for the Union, and I'll explain those in just a second. Game comes with a color rule book. This game rule book is not difficult to absorb. It's about 12 pages long. So, as you can see here, it's nicely illustrated. Pretty well explained. There's only a couple anomalies I ran into that weren't explained as well as I would have liked in the rule book, but we're able to figure it out. And like I said, this is a very different Gettysburg game. Now, it is not a Euro game by any stretch of the imagination. You may look at these pieces and say, "Uh-oh, Euro game." It's not. This is definitely a war game. Comes with a player aid card, double-sided. These are all the charts to the game. Right here and right here. Actually, these are really the most substantial charts. It is for assault and artillery bombardment. And then there is one more card, and that's your reinforcement display, and that's what you're going to put all your pieces in. This is also duplicated in the rule book, so each player can have a copy of all of the charts and displays as you play the game. Now I happen to have 2 copies of the rule book and charts because there was a little mix-up with my copy when it arrived, and Treefrog was nice enough to send me some replacements. Well, this is how the game works, and this is what makes this game so interesting to me. First of all, let me explain the pieces. These little dudes here look like they're kneeling down. That's your cavalry. And they basically function like infantry in the game, except that they are a little bit more mobile, and they can't take as many hits in combat. These are, of course, artillery pieces. For the Union here, you have your regular infantry, and then you have your inferior infantry, which are less well-trained folks. I want to say 11th Corps boys that are coming on here from the Emmitsburg Road. And then you have here the Black Hats. But the token, actually, the wooden block is actually red in color. That symbolizes elite infantry. The Union only have 1. These would be the Black Hatters, 1st Corps, and they start there in Gettysburg. Setup of the game is very quick and easy because it's all printed on the map, and then the reinforcement display. There's no other pieces that you need to stick anywhere else. For the Confederacy, you have your artillery, you have your infantry, and then the black infantry dudes, these guys here are your elite infantry, and you have quite a few of them actually for the Confederacy. Now, the Confederacy does not have cavalry because Stuart was off riding around the Union lines and basically AWOL for a lot of the battle, or at least not where he perhaps would have liked to have been for the battle. So there's no Confederate cavalry in the game. Now, what are all these cubes for? Units can take hits in combat, and these are basically to mark your hits in combat, and they're color-coded according to the pieces. So your regular infantry for the Confederacy, they're going to take those gray cubes. Elite are going to take the black cubes. And again, for the Union, you have your red cubes for the elite, inferior, regular, and then for your cavalry. The cubes is a hard limit. In other words, if you run out of cubes down here and one of your boys needs to take a hit, it will kill the entire piece, which can be kind of a bad thing. There are certain things that you can do to reallocate your hit tokens around to other units in order to preserve your frontline boys. Now, what are these guys here for? Well, during the course of your turn, it starts off with the phase where you're going to put all of your order discs onto the present turn marker around the perimeter of the board. So for the morning turn, the Union's going to put 10 of their markers in here, 10 of these wooden discs. And for the start of the game, you're going to always have 10 here for the morning. Union actually has 12, excuse me, I don't think I have enough out here. Let me double check. 2, 4, 6, 8. Actually, I only have 8 there. I need to put 2 more. Alright, so you take your order tokens, make sure that there's enough of them to fill that number. If you don't have enough tokens in your pool to put in this, then what the Union player is going to do is he's going to use these black tokens here, and he's going to put those into that box. Now, black tokens basically are dud orders. They don't do anything. The player is not allowed to do anything with a black order token other than to take it off and simply pass. The Confederacy, meanwhile, will put 12 tokens down here on this strip, and then they're going to put 4 down here where it says double orders. Now, the Confederate player is always going to fill up this side here before they'll fill up this side. So, if you don't have enough tokens to put down in the double order area, that's too bad for you, because this is a very powerful capability that the Confederacy has. So, once that's done, then you can go ahead and start taking actions. There are 3 actions that you can take. You can place a command block. That's these numbered blocks here. You can place a command block facing toward you and away from your opponent. So there is a little bit of fog of war in the game. You can place an order token on that command block. So if you had one of these guys on the map, one of the things you could do is you could take an order token from your display over here and you could put it next to your block. And you can put a number of order tokens equal to that number. Once that number has been reached in terms of order tokens, then you can no longer place any order tokens there. Of course, there is a little bit of fog of war, so your opponent doesn't know when an order block has been filled up. The third type of action that you can take during an action phase is you can remove a command block. When you do that, it takes all of those discs and puts them back into your stock. That's important because at the start of a turn, you need to be able to fill up your displays here. And that's especially true of the Union player. If you don't have enough to fill up the display, then you're forced to put in these blank dud orders. So that's the different actions you can take. And so just for grins, let's just go ahead and go through a couple turns here. I'm the Confederate player. Confederate player always goes first. So I'm going to go ahead and put a command block down on the map. And I'm going to go ahead and put this one, say, let's go ahead and put this guy right here. So, and I'll put him face up so it looks better on the camera. Ordinarily, that would be faced away from my opponent. How's the game play solitaire? Well, you're losing some of the fog of war, but it still plays all right because there's enough going on in the game that it doesn't seem to hinder things for me anyways. Now, next thing I can do is, this is a reinforcement box. Each area on the map can contain a maximum of 4 pieces at any given time. Now with a reinforcement box, at any time, even if it's not your turn, you can always slide them into that area, but careful not to overstack. So I'll just go ahead and do that now just to show how that would work. So my action is done. I placed a command block. Now it's the Union player's turn. What would they do? Well, they have no command blocks on the map. So you might be wondering why I put that one there. Well, here's why. I'm going to go ahead and take, let's go ahead and use this one here. I'm going to take an order block for the Union, and I'm going to put it here in the Lutheran cemetery, or seminary, just outside of Gettysburg. Here's what the positioning of those things do. If you are forced to retreat, and guess what? These cavalry boys, they're going to be needing to retreat here fairly soon. You can only retreat into an area that contains a command block or an adjacent area. Vertices are only adjacent for artillery fire, as I understand it. So, and that's the one issue in the game I wish was clarified better, but it's implicit in the rule. It's implied in the rules. It's not really spelled out like I would like it to be. Okay, so now it's back over to the Confederate side, and nobody's used an order token yet, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll take an order token here from the, well, let's take it from this side so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take it from the 12 side, place it into this area. When I do that, I can then activate units from one adjacent area. So I'm going to do a movement order. Now there's a ton of different types of orders in the game, and they're all neatly summarized on this particular player aid. So you can have move and assault. That's how you're going to do your combat. Moving into an enemy occupied area is an assault. You can fire your artillery long range, which is sometimes useful to prepare, especially if your opponent has entrenched. You'll want to probably prepare the ground before you engage with your infantry. And there's a little table there for your long range artillery fire. You can reinforce, which is reallocating a damage cube from one area to another area. You can reorganize by removing a disruption marker. You can pass and do nothing. You can do a forced pass. That's when you remove those black dud order discs from the Union side. The Confederacy will never have to do a forced pass, by the way. That's only the Union. And then lastly, you can entrench. Or you can remove an artillery fire marker. That seems to be a waste to me of an order. Key thing to remember though here is, once you place those command blocks down, they're out of your stock, and if you ever remove a command block, it's going to be set aside until you've removed all of them from your stock, and then all your set aside boys come back into play. Well, what we're going to do here is we place this token down so we can go ahead and march these guys down the road. And this may not be the optimal strategy, but let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and march these four boys, all infantry, over on this side. And then one guy here, well, check that. Let's do it like this. Alright, there are limits to how many guys can cross a boundary. You can have 2 guys cross any boundary. 4 will cross a boundary if there's a road into it. If you're engaging an enemy and entering their area, you can only send 2 guys in regardless of whether there's a road or not. So what I ended up doing was, as I emptied this area here, I shifted boys from the reinforcement box. And I moved a couple of guys down the road, so I've got a cannon and 3 infantry, 2 of which are regular, 1 is elite. And then I put 2 infantry and 1 cannon in this area with the order block. You do want to have somebody guarding those order blocks if your opponent is in a position to march in there, because if they march in there, they will remove the order block along with any of the order discs, and so that order would be out of play. Of course, they wouldn't be able to see the value of that order block. So that's basically kind of a real simple overview of how the game's going to work. Assaults are a little involved, but not terribly so when compared to most war games. First thing that would happen is the defending artillery would fire, and there's just a simple chart here to find out how many damage cubes are going to be applied to the other force. Then you're going to have defending infantry you're going to fire. Then the attacking infantry will have to take morale checks, which may force them to retreat or possibly even be eliminated. And then finally the attacking infantry get to fire, and then the defending infantry have to do a morale check. And there's advantages to being in areas that have defensive qualities about them, like the hills here, or excuse me, the ridges, and then the hills like Cemetery Hill, the Round Tops, and so forth. Overall, do I like this game? I love it. It's becoming one of my favorite Gettysburg games. I'm a Gettysburg fan. I enjoy 3 Days at Gettysburg. This is a really good game. I definitely highly recommend it. If you have the opportunity to pick it up, recommend you do so. It is a limited edition game. So, thank you. Hope you enjoyed this video, and have a happy 4th of July.